So how do I become a pilot? Come to the right video if you're asking that question. I'm Sigward Aviator. For those of you who have watched several of my videos or followed them for years, you know that most of my videos are all about flying. I do a lot of videos where I immerse you in the aircraft, whether that's flying a little Cessna 150 with a student, or flying the King Air with some of my more advanced students, or flying the jet as I do for my main job. I love to share the experience of aviation with others. So this is a little bit different video because I want to start a series called Teaching Tuesdays. I'm still going to be doing my immersive videos, so don't worry. I'll still be bringing you along on flights that I do as much as possible. But I also want to try to start educating some people that have questions about aviation. Some questions that I've gotten through my Instagram, through my YouTube, through different people, and some things that kind of, as more advanced pilots, you kind of forget, like when you first started out, how you didn't even know where to start. And that was my case. I didn't have a bunch of family members that were in aviation. I didn't have a bunch of friends that flew. So when I started out, basically, I didn't know what to do or what the kind of progression or pathway was. So for some of you guys that are out there wondering that very thing, this video is for you. So the first thing when starting out, you're thinking, hey, I want to become a pilot. Whatever piqued your interest, whether it was a video, whether it was looking up at the sky and seeing an airplane fly over, whatever it was that kind of intrigued you to become a pilot, you've now taken that first step towards accomplishing that goal in clicking this video. And then the next step, I would say, to do is to find your local airport, find your local flight school, and take an intro flight. Don't hesitate. Do it now. Do it today if possible. Call them on the phone, get it scheduled. It might be a couple days down the road, but take action today. Get that intro flight scheduled. And what's an intro flight? Intro flight kind of introduces you to what to expect in your journey towards getting your pilot's license. Usually you'll take about 30 minutes to talk about all that is entailed in becoming a pilot. They'll take you to the aircraft and show you the different pieces of the aircraft, of how it flies, and then you'll actually take off and you'll be with a certified flight instructor. It'll be totally safe, but you'll be able to take the flight controls at some point in the flight. And he'll kind of guide you, or she'll kind of guide you through the process of climbing, maybe doing a couple of turns, perhaps if you live close to the airport, even flying over your house or the school that you attended. And it's just a really, really neat experience. At that point, most likely you're gonna say, this is for me, I love it, this is fantastic, sign me up, take my money, I want to learn to fly. Now for others, very few people, the intro flight was like, you know what, an eye-opener. I thought I wanted to do this, I was interested in doing it, but you know what, I'm better just to stay in the back as a passenger. And that's fine. The worst thing that happened is you got to go and enjoy a beautiful scenic flight, and that's the end. But for most of you guys, you're going to want to continue. So what's the next step? I would encourage you to get your medical. The reason I say getting your medical right away before diving into your flight training is because you might have an issue that might cause you not to be able to get your medical. So this medical here is actually an FAA medical, which you have to do with an aviation medical examiner. The next thing to do is start training. So most likely at the place you took the intro flight, they will offer aviation courses that you can take. Some schools are solely Part 61 and some are what's called Part 141. At the flight school that I taught out of, it is both a 61 and a 141. We offer both options. So 61, just as a general reference, is more of a at your pace. If you're working a full-time job and you're just coming in part-time, 61 is probably the way that you're going to want to go because it's a little bit more flexible that way. A 141, you can get your pilot certificate with a little less flight time, maybe save some money on the aircraft, but it's a little bit more structured, more syllabus-based. With ground school, you have a couple different choices. If you go the 141 program, you have to go by strictly whatever the flight school's syllabus requires. As far as the 61, a little bit more flexibility that way. You can do some of your ground school with perhaps your flight instructor there. You can pay him and he will do some lessons with you. Or you can buy an online program. A lot of different companies offer online ground school that will also have test prep in there for the FAA written exam that you're going to want to complete sooner rather than later. Don't be that person who gets all the way through their flight training and then check ride time comes and you don't have that FAA written out of the way. But I recommend students getting it sooner rather than later. Plus, when you take the ground school program that's going to help prep you for the exam, you learn a lot of stuff that you can impress your instructor with when you come out on maybe your first, second, third, fourth, fifth flight and you already know the information and your instructor's going to be like, yes, I don't have to spend as much time in the pre-flight going over what we're going to do in the flight lesson because this student is prepared. Then you're going to do what's called prep for the check ride. Now, what is the check ride? The check ride is the final test that you've been leading up to. You've gotten all your flight training in, you've gotten your written exam out of the way, you are now ready to go to the check ride. So the flight instructor that you've been working with is confident that you're prepared, that you have all the knowledge that it takes to be a good pilot. You've done your cross countries, you've done your solo flights, you've done emergency procedures, you've done everything needed. He's happy with you. He's probably even had you fly with another instructor to kind of give you the feeling of flying with somebody you're not used to flying with. And because you're going to be nervous, all pilots are going to their check ride. It's a big deal, and it's a big responsibility to fly. So you should have a little bit of that. But also have that confidence knowing you've been prepared correctly, you've studied your heart out, and you're ready for this exam. So when you go there to the check ride, you're going to have your written exam with you. You're going to start out with what's called an oral. So he's going to check you, and perhaps if you've had a few questions that you messed up on the written exam, he might kind of grill on some of those areas just to make sure that you have a good understanding of those subjects. After the oral, if you successfully pass it, you're going to take what's called the practical or the flight exam. So you're going to actually get in the aircraft and you're going to go up, do an actual flight, and he'll ask you to do several different maneuvers and procedures. He'll test your knowledge on cross-country flying, whether or not you understand that, some VOR work, emergency procedures, all of the different subjects that you covered in your flight training, he'll be testing. Once you successfully complete that, you become a pilot, meaning you have a license in hand to learn. So you can take your friends up flying, you can go out and enjoy the privileges of a pilot's license. Now, for those of you, and I'm going to cover some of these in more detail in other areas, for those of you who want to continue your education, you're not just happy just being a private pilot, you can then go for your IFR rating, which allows you to fly in instrument flight rules, meaning you can fly in the clouds by reference to the instrument. After you get your instrument, normal progression would then be to get your commercial certificate, which would allow you to actually get a job flying. And then after your commercial, a lot of guys will get their multi. They might get it before that as well, but many of the people get it afterwards as they're looking to get into more complex aircraft. To get your commercial, you have to have a minimum of 250 hours. Then you go ahead and a lot of times some people get their CFI, their CFII, their MEI, or they will get rated in a more complex aircraft so that then they can build hours towards their ATP, which is an air transport pilot license, which you have to have a minimum of 1,500 hours to get, or if you've done a college degree program, you can do it with less. And that's another option out there. If you're not going to do the local flight school route, you can then choose an accelerated program that is usually a 141 program where you can get a lot of your certificates. Some people can get all of their certificates except for the ATP in as little as a year. And those require you to obviously not be working a full-time job most of the time and you're focused solely on flying. And then the other option is to do the degree program, which is about a 4-year program. A lot of people already have their private pilot's license coming into that, and then they continue their IFR, their commercial, and their CFI certificates if they choose to do the CFI route, and then they have a degree which allows them to get their ATP with lower minimal hours. And I can I'll put a link to some of these different options in the description below. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Smash that thumbs up if it has. Leave a comment if you have any questions or if I can help you in any way. And as always, have a fantastic day and fly safe.